So I wanted to do a quick video about discussing the cost of insulin and why it is that those of us in the diabetes community are so worked up about this. Um, this this is about the cost of insulin in the United States specifically. Obviously, in other countries, this problem might not exist to the same extent. But here in the U.S., the cost of a vial of insulin, of Humalog, NovoLog, basically the insulin that those of us in particular with type 1 diabetes often use, is hundreds of dollars per vial, per pack of pens, etc., etc. Now, the reason that we get worked up about this is insulin is something that the body naturally produces. It's part of a natural functioning pancreas. Your pancreas, if you don't have diabetes, produces insulin. It's not something you have to think about. It's a bit like breathing or your heart beating. It's just something your body does. And we are being charged exorbitant amounts of money, basically, to take something that we need to stay alive. I liken it to if someone was holding you underwater and saying, I will let you up to breathe for a week if you pay me $1,000. Basically, that's unreasonable. We can all agree that's unreasonable. Now, there are those who will say, oh, well, you could just go on a low-carb diet. Well, yes, eating fewer carbs will result in most of us having to take fewer units of insulin, but low-carb diets don't necessarily work the same way for everybody. There are some people for whom, no matter how many carbs they cut out, they still have to take large units of insulin because there's still the basal rate that's required. There are still blood sugar corrections that need to be done. Your blood sugar is affected by more than carbs. It's affected by stress. It's affected by hormones. It's affected by sleep, by exercise, by, illness, things like that. So we still need insulin. Cutting out all carbs is not going to solve the problem. There are also people who suggest, oh, well, why don't you just go to Walmart and buy the $25 over-the-counter insulin? Here's why that's not necessarily a great option. Yes, for some people that option works. When I was first diagnosed, I was on R and N. Those are human insulins. The insulins now are analog insulins. I have made the transition to an analog insulin. If I were to go back on human insulin, it would require a great deal of monitoring on my part and a great deal of work and a great deal of adjustment. And unfortunately, most people with diabetes, especially type 1s who are younger, aren't as well versed on how to make those adjustments because they've not had to do that in the past. And unless you're under the care of a doctor, even transitioning back to that and going back to what your body was on before you made the transition over to analog, it still requires a bit of work. It's not like you're going to substitute R for Humalog or R for NovoLog and all of a sudden everything's going to be fine. No, you have to actually monitor your blood sugars tightly. And by the way, test strips are also kind of astronomical. You have to monitor your blood sugars closely, and it's a long process. And unfortunately, the insulins don't react the same way in people. So yes, your body might react well to R. You might be okay doing, taking a vial of R and eating a low carb diet. Someone else might not be. So suggesting a one-size-fits-all solution is not feasible. Also, we should not be in the position where we have to make that choice. We're not arguing that, oh, well, we should just do away with the inexpensive insulin. What we're saying is the insulin that we do need should be offered at the same price as the insulin that's not as good. We shouldn't have to be in the position to make that choice. There are those who say, well, at least it's an option. No, that's not the point. The point is we need more options in a price range that we can all afford. That's like going back to the pool analogy. saying, oh, well, you could just for $50 buy an air tank. Well, you need to be trained on how to use the oxygen tank. You need training on how to set that up and how to monitor your breathing properly and make sure that the equipment is working fine. It's not necessarily a great option for everybody, especially if you don't know what you're doing. So, I understand that people, especially even some people in the diabetes community, but especially non-diabetics, meanwhile, when they say, oh, well, you could just do X, Y, and Z. Well, that might work for some people. It might not work for us. We don't want to take that chance. The point is, we shouldn't have to take that chance. We shouldn't have to make that choice. And do you really want to find out the hard way that a suggestion that's being made to you is not going to work for you? Because this is a matter of life and death. If you get your insulin doses wrong, you can die. If you take too much insulin, you can die. If you don't take enough insulin, you can die. This is a life and death situation. It's not something that we can just play around with. So that's why the cost of analog insulins needs to be brought down in the US. I understand we're never going to have socialized medicine. I've made my peace with that. But we need to get these prices of the analog insulins, the insulins that most of us use to stay alive, the insulins that most of us need because our bodies have been adjusted to it, have been acclimated to it, to be at a price point that we can afford. And we need people to understand that throwing out a solution that maybe worked for person A is not going to work for person B. We need to have the options that work for us individually. And that's why we get so worked up over the insulin pricing in the United States and why we do need insulin for all. And we need to get on our Congress people until this happens. We need to push for the price of insulin being brought down. Right now, it is unconscionable how much we have to pay for insulin. I'm lucky I have insurance. Personally, at the moment, I don't have to pay that much, but I have been uninsured in the past, and I did have to go back to those human insulins, not the analogs, the R and N. My A1C skyrocketed because I wasn't making the adjustments properly. So yes, we need the prices of these insulins that work for us. We need to have access to whatever insulin works for us as individuals, brought to a reasonable amount. And we need to keep pushing until this happens. That's all I'm going to say on this matter for now. I might have more thoughts later. I will probably post this video at some point this week. I'm recording it on Monday, but sometimes it takes me a couple days to upload. So anyway, take care. Feel free to like and subscribe. Bye.